Hey, you're listening to another episode of the Top 8 Podcast. I'm Matt Batiste.
And I'm your co-host, TJ, as always.
And we are talking about when we were young again.
Again, here we go. 2025 lineup is announced. Looks super sick. We'll put it up on the, on the screen for everybody to see. I'm sure you've already seen it, but yeah.
The crazy thing is we just wrapped up our full coverage for 2024.
We're not even done yet. We just started posting, essentially, which is like, oh, damn, we're not even done with this. We haven't even started this year, and you're already announcing next year.
So much when we were young content over the next few weeks from this past year and the upcoming year, which is really, really exciting. How are you feeling about when we were young 2025 so far?
First impressions, this lineup's pretty stacked. I'm not going to lie. I'm a fan of heavier music. So like the representation of heavy bands on this lineup is like so fitting for me. Like that right side where it's like Knock Loose, Ice Nine Kills, Motionless, and then a bunch of other ones is like, this is my shit.
Yeah, it feels like they grouped all of the heavy ones on that right side there. It almost feels like they grouped like the stages that they're all going to belong to.
Somebody said that too. Yeah, like the middle section would be like your main stage acts, and then you've got like the heavy stuff, and then like the old like emo stuff.
Yeah.
Loosely, obviously, but yeah.
I with this year's list of bands playing, how do you feel it compares to the past few years?
I mean, for me, this is a stacked lineup. I don't think anything will top this year's because of like the full album plays was just like so perfect for me because it was so many of my favorite albums of all time. But next year is like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll sit out a year. And then they dropped the lineup. I was like, yeah, I guess I can't.
That's the thing. I thought that about this past year. I was like, maybe I'll sit out a year because of the wedding and all of that. But it's like with the album plays, it's like, how are you going to sit out a year? And then they dropped this lineup. It's like, how are you going to sit out a year?
Yeah. So first impressions for you, you're still hyped.
First impressions for me. Okay. So when I saw the 2025 When We Were Young lineup, immediately my first thought was, if we were to go back in time 6 months ago when Warped Tour, there was no word of Warped Tour coming back, I feel like majority of elder emos would see this lineup and be like, this is what they wanted Warped Tour to be if it were to come back.
Okay.
It's got a mix of pop groups, emo groups, pop punk groups, heavy groups, metal groups, punk groups. It's got everything. Old, it's got new. I feel like this is the ultimate Warped Tour lineup. If it were to come back after all these years, we still don't know what that lineup is going to be for Warped Tour at the time of recording, at least. So they could drop the lineup tomorrow.
No, they're not doing anything until January.
But with this lineup here, it blew my freaking mind. I'm like, I don't know. Once again, time conflicts are going to kill me on this one more than it has the past couple of years, because also my music taste is so diverse that like, I'm going to spend 1 minute shaking my ass to Breathe Carolina, and then I'm going to be running across the festival grounds to get hit in the back of the head in the Knock Loose pit.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
it's going to be very different switch up of vibes for this lineup, for sure.
100%. There's going to be a lot of ass shaking. There's going to be a lot of ass shaking at Breathe Carolina and then into Tsunami.
Yeah.
You know?
I love the mix, to be honest. Like, even they've got like Bad Religion on here, like OG punk bands. Like,
that's what I'm saying. This is like what a Warped Tour lineup, what we would expect out of a Warped Tour lineup 6 months ago.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally see that.
And so, a
lot of like heavy bands that grew up like being on Warped Tour too, like Ice Nine Kills and We Came as Romans, and like those sort of like 2010s metalcore bands that were just synonymous with that festival.
And like, look, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, this is When We Were Young. It's supposed to be the nostalgia fest. How much nostalgia is there when you have a band like...
At this point, it is nostalgic though.
Yeah, it is. There are a few newer bands that are in there, like Arm's Length and Tsunami are all bands that kind of formed in the last 5 years or so, and they've gotten like they're newer bands, and I wouldn't necessarily consider them nostalgia. But also, though, even last year they added a bunch of groups that were, in the past few years, they've always had a couple of those new groups.
Oh yeah,
that wouldn't necessarily be nostalgia acts, but don't go see them if you don't want to. But honestly, you're missing out.
Dude, there's enough good bands on this that you're gonna see a perfect day of music. No matter what your music taste is, you're getting a perfect day of sets.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm like super excited. And I swear every single time I look at this lineup, I see someone new on it.
Same. I literally texted you like 2 days ago. The lineup has been out for like 2 weeks ish at this point, at the point of us recording this. And I just texted you like 2 days ago. I was like, wait, Arm's Length is on this? I totally missed them.
I'm so happy for them too, because they're such a huge up and coming group. And I feel like most elder emos, if they actually went to go and listen
you
to
would enjoy
Arm's Length,
them.
like, yeah, they fit the bill so well, where they're a new up and coming amazing emo group. But like, if you grew up listening,
wait, is that Asking Alexandria there?
Yes,
I totally missed them too.
Like, this is crazy.
Kublai Khan, Plot and You, dude. This lineup is this whole right. The main feels so out of place on this right side, but
it really does feel out of place on the right side.
I guess you have Paris and stuff in there too, but yeah.
And then same thing with the like. My favorite band of all time is playing When We Were Young. Ooh. Like, my favorite band of all time.
The Gaslight Anthem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, honestly, like, two of my favorite bands of all times are playing this. You know what I mean? So it's like, we're going to get deeper into that when we run down our top 8. But, I think the ones that shocked me the most are going to be the fact that Set Your Goals is getting back together. And honestly, before even getting into this conversation with our lists, I'm more excited for the reunion of Set Your Goals than I am for Panic at the Disco.
I kind of fit dude, I think my number 1 on this list is a reunion that I never thought was going to happen. So a little spoiler.
I'm excited to hear who that is. But honestly, like, I'm really excited for a lot of those like scene emo reunions as well.
Dude, Breathe Carolina coming back, that's kind of crazy. They're not on my list, but I saw them and I was like, what kind of Breathe Carolina are we going to get? Because I know they started as like a scene band and then they kind of transitioned to like EDM kind of music.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what
it's like a nostalgia.
I have to assume it's going to be that.
Yeah. Like, I want to hear Breathe Carolina. The Rocket Summer's on here. Like, all of these old, like, it's such a perfect mix. Like I said, with that being said, we're probably still going to see, and also like making a top 8 list. Can we also say every single band here is a honorable mention? Like, I'm looking at this list now and being like, how did I leave Alexis on Fire off of this list? So that's spoiler alert. They're not on my top 8 list, but you know what I mean? Like, how can I possibly leave them off my list? How can I possibly leave The Story So Far off of my list? You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people on here that, how did I leave them off my list? It's because you have to pick 8 of like the most stacked lineup ever.
Yeah, 100%.
So this is definitely going to be a tough one. Do you want to just jump right on into it? What do you have in here at number 8?
Yeah, so our list is actually going to be the bands that we are most hyped for or we are most excited for, like, seeing this announcement.
Yes.
So my number 8 is Boys Like Girls, because I missed their set at this year's When We Were Young, and I was really sad about it. So the fact
we
that
had a chance to interview them, that's in the last episode as well. So seeing Martin and how much energy he brought was
so much energy. We saw him do a couple songs at Emo Night, which was cool. Bit of a preamble for what I wanted their set to be, but just with like the conflicts and everything, I couldn't make it to their set. But seeing them added to this again, I was like, okay, good, I got another chance.
Yeah.
So they were an easy number 8 for me.
For me, at number 8, I think this is going to shock a lot of people that are watching this or excited for this festival, especially if you've never listened to the podcast before or watched this on YouTube. I have Panic at the Disco.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm surprised. I'm genuinely surprised.
I put Panic at the Disco at number 8 for a couple of reasons. For one,
they're the headliner.
They're the headliner. So like, obviously you want to see what they're going to do. But I'm not as excited as I think most people would say or think, because some people put Panic at the Disco on their Mount Rushmore of emo groups, which to me, they're not. They're not on my Mount Rushmore. They're not even close.
I don't think this is even a hot take that they're not.
Yeah, I feel like they might be. It depends on who you ask, but
I guess. I don't know what it is. I've always been like, admittedly, a Panic at the Disco hater, because I think they get like so much credit being on people's Mount Rushmores that I'm like, for me, they have one scene album, the one that they're playing, but on that record, only a couple of songs ever really stuck with me, and I never got the hype personally they didn't make my list, and also mostly because we don't know what this band is going to look like come this performance. Right now, it's just Brandon Urie. We've had no information about whether the original band is coming back. People are really hesitant about that. So
that's kind of why they're number 8 on my list, because I'm like curious to see what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, what it's going to look like. So I think number 8 is just like, 1, the curiosity thing, and 2, very similar to last year's or this past year, the exclusivity of when we were young and the performance. Same
if you were
thing with,
like, this would be the only time you could ever.
Yeah, and I've never seen Panic, but like I've never really had an interest to see them. Like truthfully, if Panic toured and they stopped in Toronto, I don't know if I would go and buy tickets for that.
Right.
But if I'm going to be at When We Were Young and they're the headliner, I'd like to see what they do. And if you listen to the last episode that we did, where we did a full review of 2024's When We Were Young, you'll know that I wasn't a big fan of My Chemical Romance's performance because of the actual showmanship. I felt like it was lacking something. I have a feeling that Panic at the Disco will do a lot more than My Chem did. If they added those extra fireworks and all of that extra showmanship into their set, I think it would be worth actually seeing and sticking around for that exclusivity and for all of that. So like, that's where I have a little bit of interest, even though they were never really a favorite band for me.
Yeah, they're one of those bands where like I would get to the end of the night and I'm not going to like leave or anything. I'm going to go see their set because they're going to be one of the last bands of the day. So I'm just like like if this was just like who's most intriguing, I'm most intrigued to see what this is, like what it becomes. But they're not on my list. So
yeah, for me, it's a curiosity thing. And so like I said, I left a lot of bands that I enjoy a lot more than Panic at the Disco.
There's so many bands I enjoy on this list so hard.
Yeah, like I said, Alexis on Fire and The Story So Far aren't going to be on my list, and I enjoy them way more than Panic at the Disco.
Yeah.
But I'm way more curious to see what Panic at the Disco does, and I've seen Alexis on Fire and The Story So Far more in the last year.
Yes.
You know? So
for sure. That kind of leads right into my number 7, which is Alexis on Fire. Mm-hmm. More so, I was just so excited to see them on this bill. Like when I saw their name, I was like, no way. I never thought that they'd be like recognized on a bill like this, because I feel like I
was kind of hoping they would be this year, to be honest.
Like, so I'm always hoping that they're going to be there, but
they're the one band that fits into the scene so perfectly that hasn't been on the bill in the last 3 years.
I think I'm always shocked that they don't get more like recognition in the States. Mm-hmm. So I just thought that they wouldn't have been like included on something like this, but like, I'm so happy that they are. They always put on a good show. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen them a whole bunch. Like I've seen them 3 times in the last like 3 years, but every time they're so good live. So definitely a must catch set.
For me at number 7, I put Arm's Length. And so we kind of talked about this in the intro. I put them there because I'm more curious, not to see how they're going to perform, because I've seen them perform and they kill it in the small clubs.
Like the fan reactions?
Yeah, I'm curious to know what type of reaction the crowd's going to give them.
Yeah.
And they're one of those bands that, honestly, even though they're a newer band, I do like them a lot more. And they only really have one album right now and like a few singles and like an EP. But like, I'm really curious to see what their set looks like, what the crowd looks like. And of course, you know, they're one of the best doing it right now. So I'll definitely go and see them over a few bands on this set list.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense. My number 6 is Blink-182. They're a little lower on my list.
6.
Yeah.
6.
I mean, okay, my thing with them is like they're one of my favorite bands of all time. I'm never not going to be hyped to see them, but I feel like I've gotten my Blink fill as of late. Saw them last year when we were young. Saw them on this most recent tour. So I'm like,
did you see them in May of last year too? When they came to,
So like
I've seen them 4 times in the last year.
I've seen them a lot lately where like I see them as a headliner and I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And I love their performance, but I'm more excited to see some of these other bands that I haven't seen as recently or I don't know, or ever. So yeah, they're number 6 for me.
All right. We'll talk more about them later. But
I kind of figured, yeah.
I've got Breathe Carolina at number 6.
Okay.
And I put them there once again. That's like it's a reunion thing. And I remember little scene Matt with his iPod listening to Breathe Carolina and like art class and stuff. So that one's going to be one of those, you know, wow, this took me in a spaceship right back to 2007 or 2008. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's one of those bands that I'm excited to see what they do. And there's not really much to say because it's not even like I've really listened to Breathe Carolina a whole lot in the last little bit. It's just
to revisit that era.
And like really truly get that when we were young experience, right? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is the spirit of when we were young, is listening to those forgotten smaller bands as well throughout that era and taking you right back to the 2000s. And I feel like they'll be able to do that for me more than a few others as well. So
yeah, no, that totally makes sense. They are not on my list because I was never like really into their music. Like I knew of them and like kind of the impact that, I mean, other people love them. But it was just like, they never really connected for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be intrigued to go see their sets. They'll just see like what they do.
Yeah.
But my number 5 is I Prevail. And I mostly put them here because I've heard that they're like one of the best live bands that you can see. And I've seen them once, but it was at like the worst venue in Toronto. So I had like a terrible experience at the venue. So I just want to see them in like a big crowd, everybody singing along and like having a good time and just get the full experience of that performance.
Yeah. That's the thing about like going to a festival and seeing bands that you've seen in the past that didn't do so well. You're kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I get to give them a second chance now without paying for another ticket just in case it was them and not the venue or whatever, right?
It was definitely the venue, like where I was standing. I couldn't see like anything. So like moving around there is so tight too that I could hear that they were putting on a good show. I just couldn't really see it.
Oh, okay.
So like
you'll be right up front for them.
Yeah, exactly.
My number 5, go figure, I went from Breathe Carolina into Knocked Loose. So I'm quite literally going to be shaking my ass at Breathe Carolina and then running over to shake my ass at Knocked Loose.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yes.
I'm so excited for this mixture of that. Like it's going to be... This is what it's all about. Like this is what a festival is about. I quite literally am going to like, dance and then dance.
Yes.
With Knock Loose, I saw them.
We're going from like dancing, like fun dancing to hardcore dancing.
I'm actually going to be hardcore dancing during Breathe Carolina. I'm going to go in there throwing fists and elbows, and then I'm going to get into the Knock Loose pit, and everyone's going to be throwing fists, and I'm just going to be in there twerking.
Get it on video or it didn't happen.
I feel like that's a content reel right there. That's a video. I need to write that down.
You show up at the wrong set.
Showing up at the wrong set at when we were young. Matt twerking in the middle of the How long can I twerk
right
in the
before the wall of
pit?
death slams on you?
How long can I twerk in the Knocked Loose pit before getting absolutely killed? But yeah, I saw Knocked Loose. It wasn't a sideshow. It was Pure Noise. It was a Pure Noise anniversary show that they did in Vegas that same weekend on that Friday. And that was my first time ever seeing Knocked Loose. And I feel like with Knocked Loose, I've just had bad luck in terms of catching them. Yeah. Like the first time that I wanted to see them and they came to Toronto where I was like, okay, I'm going to buy tickets. Was when they played with Motionless in White, but that was the day after we got back from When We Were Young 2 years ago.
Yeah, I didn't go to that one either.
And if you've been to When We Were Young already and it's not your first year, when you
need
get
a break.
Back, you're not going to another concert the day after you land.
Or if you do, you're a trooper.
Yeah, you really are. And then last year they came while I was in California getting married. So being able to
that was the one that I went to, and holy shit, that show was so good.
Yeah. And being able to see them in Vegas, I was like, oh my goodness, they put on such an amazing show. So I'm really looking forward to see what they do with their When We Were Young set. Because also the thing is about When We Were Young that I also feel is worth it alone, buying a ticket and going, is the fact that every single band goes above and beyond and goes all out with their set no matter what. It's like they all want to do something special. They all
want to give the best set of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I definitely found that too.
That they're going to give 110%. I mean, that they also do this for their individual shows as well. But also I feel like it's different because, you're on tour, you're doing the same thing each and every single night and you're trying to bring that same energy. every single night, but like, all eyes are on When We Were Young, and everything that you do or say is going to go viral on Instagram or TikTok the next day.
Yeah.
It's going to make headlines. Media's there. So it's like, what's the craziest thing we can do, or how good can we perform to get that headline the next day? So
their festival set is insane too. I saw them at Sick New World, and it was like phenomenal. That was the first time that they ever brought out Poppy to do Suffocate too, which was so sick.
So
that was the viral moment.
And Motionless in White is going to be at When We Were Young as well. So
potential for Slaughterhouse 1 and 2.
Exactly. So
they didn't do it at Sick New World, but I think it was because Motionless in White played like right before Knock Loose, so the timing just didn't work out, which was kind of disappointing. So I hope that they do.
I hope that they allow for that, because that would be the main reason I go and see Motionless in White.
Oh, really? Such a good breakdown.
I like Motionless in White, but like Slaughterhouse is just so good that like I will go and hear just that one song and then leave if there's a conflict.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of Motionless in White, my number 4. I definitely cheated here because I put the combination of Ice Nine Kills and Motionless in White, because those two bands go hand in hand for me like so much. Love the horror aesthetic. Massive fan of both bands. Slaughterhouse would be so sick to see live. I saw Motionless in White at Sick New World. They absolutely killed it. Their sound is like phenomenal, just like punchy, makes you want to move. They're a can't miss.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you know what? I may as well just do it. My number 3 was Knock Loose.
Okay.
So
let's talk about Knock Loose then on your side of it.
I was gonna say, after seeing them in Toronto, I left that set being like, I can never miss this band again, ever. So they're a must catch set anytime that they're here. And when I saw them on their headliner, they only played like the 3 singles from the new album. And spoiler alert for our end of the year episodes, I fucking love that record. So I need to hear more songs off that album. So.
Yeah, when they played in Vegas, they played a lot from their new album, and it was
did they?
Great.
I haven't looked up one of their set lists in a long time, so I wouldn't know what they're playing right now.
My one complaint though is that they're not playing, and you know how much I love pop culture. They don't play anything from pop culture, their older stuff really anymore.
For me, being a massive fan of like a different shade of blue and this new record, their set is perfect for me.
Yeah. I wish that they
get like Dead
in,
Ringer
like,
and Counting Worms, and then the rest is the new stuff.
Yeah, I wish that they just sprinkled in one song from the album, or from the EP. Like, I really wish that they just threw in like All My Friends or something.
Yeah, they were doing it for a while, but I feel like this new album just has really taken over for them.
Yeah.
In terms of like even mainstream appeal, like they were getting recognition from these massive like outlets that you wouldn't think Knock Loose would be featured on.
Yeah.
It's because of this record.
Absolutely.
But every second of their set is pure chaos. You got to be there.
They're one of those bands. They've gotten that reputation of their live shows for a reason. So I'm curious to know what the pit's going to look like at When We Were Young for them, because they're also known for like their deadly pits. But one thing that I've noticed,
not as deadly as you would think though. Like I thought it was going to be terrifying. I ran in at the Toronto show and I was like, oh, this is fun. Like people are aggressive but respectful, where like they're throwing hands, but like if they catch you, they're like, oh shit, like sorry man, like it's maybe it was just a Toronto thing, I don't know, but like the pit here was just like, I was nervous at first, but then I had a blast for the last half of their set.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I also just feel like When We Were Young pits tend to be weaker than regular
they're more
shows.
tame for sure.
Well, because also it's everyone's over the age of 30. I think we may have mentioned this on our When We Were Young podcast with the U's, but everyone's over the age of 30. It's a long day where you're like out there in the sun for 12 to 14
I have to
hours.
imagine they're going to be a later in the day band for sure. They're going to be headlining one of the stages, or they're going to be like 5th from the top on like the main stage.
I don't think they're a main stage.
I think they might be a main stage act this year.
I think they're going to be like towards the end.
I don't think they put Knock Loose at like the Sleeping with Sirens time this time.
I think they do. Just because I think that all of the headliners are right down the middle, buddy. I think maybe actually because their name is pretty big towards the top, right? Like you've got Panic, Blink, Weezer. Like Weezer, Avril, The Offspring are all going to be on the headline stage. I would assume the Used.
I think,
the Used, Yellow Card, Simple Plan, Taking Back Sunday. Like these bands all here, I feel like they're going to be the main stage bands.
It's tough to say. The Used will definitely be main stage. Avril definitely. I feel like they'll give.
Why is the All Time Low so big?
I
are they
think
going to be a headline band? Because I don't look at them as a headline band the same way I do any of the other bands.
neither do I, and that's why I think that they might headline like a side stage. It'll be like they will have like the Bowling for Soup spot that they had at the same time as Blink the last year at the
Yeah,
pop-up
that's
year we
mean.
went.
Putting anyone at the same time as
I
Blink
know,
is
but-
mean. Like, I have a feeling that honestly it might be like Arm's Length or something at the same time as Blink because they're like the smallest band.
I mean, you've got like 3 stages to work with, so they both good.
So for me, I have number 4. I have The Used, and we've kind of talked about
Makes
how
sense.
they're my favorite band. They're definitely most anticipated this past year,
Yeah.
but just seeing them when we were young this year, they're not doing In Love and Death in Full. Like, that was another reason why it was so special. I think the cool thing is we're probably going to see more of a mix of self-titled and In Love and Death for this one.
Which I would
So-
actually appreciate more from a used set, to be honest.
Yeah, because you know that they're going to play their hits. So I think that that's also, the Used just have so many hits, and seeing a mix of their 2 best albums will definitely be good. But the thing is there's 3 bands on this bill that beat The Used for me.
Yeah.
And that's why The Used kind of get right under there at number 4 for me. And that's just because this year is just so.
And I feel like I
feels
can
so
already
special.
name the final 3, which is
Yeah.
crazy. But we'll
What do you have at number 3?
I did my number 3. That was Knock Loose.
Yeah, that's right. So
Your number 3?
my number 3 is the Gaslight Anthem.
Oh, I expected that to be actually. I guess that kind of makes sense.
So
to you,
the
actually.
Gaslight Anthem are my number 1 favorite band of all time. For years, even through emo in the 2000s, it was always Nirvana, and Nirvana never really got overtaken by anyone until I heard the Gaslight Anthem. There's just something about Brian's songwriting that's just like, it's weird to describe it this way, but it's romantic. So it's like there's something romantic about that songwriting. The crazy thing is they're also a 2000s band, so there's a lot of nostalgia, but I don't know what else to really say about the Gaslight Anthem besides the fact that they are my favorite band of all time, and I've seen them a bunch. They were that band that like broke up, and my heart was broken for so long.
Yeah.
And listening to them all the time and through CDs after CD after CD to be like, when are they getting back together? And then, now that they're back together, I'll go see them every single time because
You don't
my
know when's the
favorite
next time's going to
songwriter.
be the last time either.
Exactly. So the Gaslight Anthem is going to be number 3 for me.
Okay.
And that's just specifically because of this festival. Even though they're my favorite band, this festival has something different to it. I'll continue to go see Gaslight every single time they come, and they will always be my favorite band. But at this festival, they're ranked 3.
Okay. Makes sense.
What do you have at number 2?
My number 2 is Weezer, actually.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Why Weezer?
They're one of like the bigger bands that I've never seen live.
Really?
The only other time I was supposed to see them, we talked about this in our episode with Lolo. Go check that out if you haven't listened to that one. Was the Hella Mega Tour, where it was supposed to be Green Day, Weezer, and Fall Out Boy all like co-headlining together, and then it got canceled because of COVID. And that was like the only other time I've been like, oh shit, this is my chance to see Weezer. I feel like I'm not like enough of a fan to go to like a solo headliner, so I'd be hyped to see them on a festival where I can see their hits.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. I was like, they're just one of those bands that I've never seen. This is my chance.
I loved Weezer back in the day. I haven't listened to them in a long time, but like I went through a big Weezer phase.
Okay.
And I've seen them a bunch of times in the late 2000s, early 2010s. They put on a crazy show.
I've
So
heard that
seeing
they're
them on
really
that
good
list-
live too. So like, I gotta see them at least once.
Yeah, they're really good. And I don't know what their set list is going to look like now that it's been so many years. The thing is with Weezer is they've just dropped so many albums over time.
Their discography is too big at this point.
Yeah, that it's like, what are they going to play? Are they going to play these new songs? Because like at a certain point, I feel like when bands release so much, if you're not like a diehard fan, you kind of fall off of them for a while. After a while. So like I fell off of them in the early 2010. Like I saw them a lot in those early 2010s, and then they just, I don't know, they fell off for me maybe in like 2015ish.
Okay.
And so if they play anything post 2015 in
You're
the
not
last
gonna
10
know
years,
it. Yeah.
I'm not going to know what it is. But
I'm not gonna know much aside from the stuff that's on the Blue album, to be completely honest. But I just want to hear some of those songs live.
yeah, and I'll be there with you watching them because that's if there's no conflict, 100% I want to see Weezer.
I have to imagine they're gonna have like a similar slot as Jimmy World had this year, like between Pierce the Veil and A Day to Remember. They're going to be between like The Used and like, trying to think of another one of the heavier bands, or maybe like The Offspring, or like, I don't know, but they'll be like up there on the main stage.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think so too. Did you want to say anything else about Weezer?
No, I'm good. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is Set Your Goals.
Hell yeah. I kind of thought this might be your number 1, to be honest.
Yeah, so Set Your Goals are one of those bands that like take me right back to 2009. I remember just getting my driver's license and driving to guitar lessons. It was like the longest stretch of drive that I was allowed to do on my own at like 16 years old, right? And so my mom would let me take the car, go to driver's lessons, and I put Mutiny into the CD player, and I would sing and scream every single song the whole way there, the whole way back. It was they were like one of my favorite bands back then. That was one of my favorite albums. It's super nostalgic. You go back and listen to like the production of that album today, and it's not that great.
I was gonna say I'd never really listened to this band, and you were so hyped on them that I went back and listened. I was like, this kind of sounds bad, but like in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, but like back then, it didn't sound bad to me. It was perfect. I loved it. And you go back and listen to it, and you're like, okay, like the production on this sounds like they did it in their closet on GarageBand in 2008. But
there's something nostalgic about that, though, to be honest.
But here's the thing about Set Your Goals. Like that album from start to finish is perfect for me. I know every single line, every single word, doing the back-to-back vocals. And then they have one song towards the end of the album called Echoes. And that album is so special for me for so many personal reasons. I'll give you like the long and short of that reason, but basically like when my great grandmother died, when me and my cousin were kids, like my cousin and I grew up, we're really close, like brother and sister. And so my great grandmother died. I remember my cousin being like, Matt, like, you know, Echoes, like what a good song to like, whatever, like grieve, like what a great grieving song. Right. Okay. And so we would listen to that song together, hang out, whatever. I think I even did a music video for that song specifically in like our grade 12 communications technology course.
Oh, wow.
With my cousin. So it was like that song just held so much weight too, like for that relationship. And so when my cousin passed away at a young age, that song became like a special part of like my grieving process with her as well. Right. So,
damn.
So yeah. So like that album and that
so much
song
weight,
has
so much power,
so much meaning to me and then like Set Your Goals. They haven't been together in so long too. So they're coming back. If they play that song, it's going to mean so much to me. And that like, you know,
everybody watch out, Matt's fucking.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not bother this man.
and then I'm going to get into my number 1 immediately after, because another thing is my number 1 is going to be Blink-182.
Okay. I'm surprised that they're number 1, to be honest, but like.
So here's the thing. So it's like, and it really goes back to, once again, my cousin of like Set Your Goals, with Echoes and that meaning there, and her no longer being with us. And Blink-182 was her favorite band of all time.
Right.
And Blink-182 is still like a very meaningful band for me.
Especially that Untitled record, right?
Yeah. So seeing Set Your Goals going into Blink is like, that's going to be an emotional mindfuck.
When we were young, folks, if you're watching this, do not put these two bands at the same time.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't. Put them one after another. I will run, whatever. This is my application to get Set Your Goals on the main stage right before Blank.
Pitching right
now. But yeah, so that's basically my story. But then also the other side of it is seeing Blink last year when we were young and the performance that they put on. And I know that we're kind of all blinked out. We've seen a bunch of Blink over the last couple of years. I didn't see them on this past tour because the
tour was so good. Yeah.
But even seeing them so much, like they just put on such an amazing show. Having Tom back really, really like rejuvenates everything. I'm excited to get another 2-hour set out of them the way that we did 2 years ago. It felt like we missed out on that opportunity this year with this year's headliners.
As many shots fired as you can have at Mike and Matt is going to take them.
But it's so I'm really excited to see how they're going to close out the night. I actually really hope that they put Blink to close out the night over Panic. I know Panic has that special side of it, but like, come on, Blink-182 with their fireworks, with the 2-hour set, like what a way to close out when we were young.
Yeah.
And so
I think they will get the finale.
Yeah. And as they should.
Yeah. 100%.
So getting a 2-hour set with the fireworks in the show is also one of those things that's really going to be special. And I'm like super anticipating that moment.
Definitely. My number one, Let Fucking Live. Man, I was going through this tour poster. I'm like, yeah, Blink. Yeah. Okay. Motionless in White. Sick. Got to see all these bands. Wait, what? Let Live? Because like they're not together anymore. And like, I'm such a massive fan of Jason Butler. I've loved everything he does because he's such an engaging frontman. And I loved Fever 333 when they put out their early stuff, and I've kind of moved away from the more recent stuff. It just hasn't really connected with me. So I didn't think that we were ever going to get this. Like, I just thought it was just going to be Fever 333 from now on. He's doing whatever. But to see them actually on this bill is so intriguing because I wonder if they're going to do more stuff around the tour, the festival too, like a tour or anything like that. But Fake History is like one of my favorite records of all time. And I feel like I've almost gravitated away from listening to the band because I didn't think that we were ever going to have this again. So I'm so excited to go back and revisit their music again too. But if you haven't listened to Let Live, please do. They're so good.
Could we just take a moment to appreciate when we were young and how they have, like, them specifically have found a way to get all of these bands to get back together?
I know.
Like, who else could do that? Like, that's where I give When We Were Young the most props.
They got power, man.
My Chemical Romance, Set Your Goals, Let Live. Hell, even Blink with Tom. Like, I'm pretty sure last year they weren't really fully together again until after When We Were Young, unless I'm...
Yeah, I think
I'm pretty sure they were on the When We Were Young bill before they really actually announced that Tom's getting back.
I think they dropped Edging and then they announced When We Were Young. But either way, it was very close.
But all of these other bands, like Breathe Carolina, like how many bands have gotten back together?
One band we didn't mention that my wife is going to hate me for, Never Shout Never. This is going to be his only performance.
Never Shout Never.
Yeah.
Even Panic at the Disco. Like
Panic,
there's just Chiodos hasn't played in 8 years until When We Were Young this past year.
Yeah.
Like how many of these bands haven't been together and got back together specifically for a When We Were Young set?
Exactly.
Like, who else can do that?
No, it's crazy.
I'm curious to know, like, I want to, like, compare it to Warped, but we don't have a thing yet. I wanted to know what Warped could possibly do, but I don't know. Honestly, big props to...
I say massive props to When We Were Young. So excited for next year's lineup. And, it's going to be a fantastic year again.
I cannot wait. And hopefully we can talk to the bands again. If you haven't checked out our recap, our review, and our interviews from this past year's When We Were Young episode, go back and do that now. It is 2 hours. We've got the interviews mixed in as we count down our top 8 of the best performances from the year. If you wanted to skip through and find the interviews, you can do that too. We won't blame you. But hopefully you enjoy that. And let us know who you are most excited to see at When We Were Young this year. And who do you think they're possibly going to reunite for next year?
Ooh, speculating about next year already. I love it.
Speculate 2026 in 2024, you know?
Amazing.
So thanks for watching and listening to another episode of the Top 8 podcast.
We'll see you next week.